Greetings, this is Griff Ruby with part 27 of my series Ecclesiology for Sedevacantists based on Dogmatic Theology, Volume 2, Christ Church by Msgr G. van Noort. Continuing where we left off as far as the argument about why the Patron See is in Rome. Okay. All right, page 77b. From the 2nd century, St. Ignatius Martyr starts his epistle to the Romans in this fashion. Ignatius, to the church that has found mercy, which also presides in the chief place of the Roman territory, a church worthy of God and presiding in love. This salutation is altogether different from those which St. Ignatius used in his other letters, and it intimates the primacy of the Roman Church. The verb prokasthei, to preside, in this context can mean nothing other than to have preeminence or authority. Elsewhere, Ignatius uses the same verb to indicate the relationship of a bishop to his priests and deacons, that so the church, which is in the chief place of the Roman territory, has or exercises authority. But over whom? Presiding over love. The word agape Ignatius also uses elsewhere to mean the assembly of love, the assembly of the brethren, the church. The meaning then is that the Church of Rome is in command of the church, and indeed of the universal church, tes agapes, without any restriction. This meaning jives neatly with what he says later of the Roman Church. You have taught others. All I want is that the lessons you inculcate in initiating disciples remain in force, as well as with what he goes on to say about his own soon-to-be widowed church. Jesus Christ alone will be her bishop, together with your love. During the reign of Pope Eleutherius, St. Irenaeus taught that there were two ways to learn the truth. One is to ascertain the common opinion of the churches, whose bishops trace their episcopal lineage back to the apostles through an unbroken line of succession. The other and easier way is to seek out the traditional teaching of the greatest, most ancient, and well-known church, founded by the two most glorious apostles, Peter and Paul at Rome. Then he goes on to tell why it suffices to consult the Church of Rome. For with this church, because of its more efficient leadership, all churches must agree, that is to say, the faithful of all places, because in it the apostolic tradition has always preserved by the faithful of all places. The Roman Church then enjoys unique preeminence over all the others, and consequently all other churches must be of one mind with this one church in believing. Pope St. Vicar urged that episcopal synods convene in many provinces to discuss the Quartodeciman question. He ordered the bishops of proconsular Asia, under threat of penalties, to abandon the Quartodeciman practice, and was in fact ready to excommunicate those who would not comply. It seems, however, that he was prevailed upon, particularly by St. Irenaeus, to refrain from carrying out this harsh measure. Again, throughout the 2nd century, St. Polycarp, Eusebius, St. Irenaeus, while still a priest, Hegesippus, and Abercius of Hierapolis came to Rome with questions concerning faith and discipline. Visits of this kind tie in very nicely with the doctrine of primacy, and apart from it are hard to explain, especially since we never read of a Roman bishop going elsewhere to seek advice. Never. C. In the 3rd century, Tertullian had already become a Montanist when he quite clearly attested to the teaching of Catholics on the primacy of the Roman Pontiff. He inveighed against Pope Callistus as follows: I also hear that an edict, indeed a peremptory one, has been issued. The sovereign pontiff, that is, the bishop of bishops, issues an edict: I forgive the sins of adultery and fornication for those who have done penance. Even though these words do not perhaps prove that the Bishop of Rome was at that time dignified by the title Bishop of Bishops, they show that at least in this matter Callistus acted as head of the bishops, i.e. that he exercised primacy. St. Cyprian called the Church of Rome the parent stem and root of the Catholic Church. He is of the opinion that to be in communion with Cornelius, the Bishop of Rome, is the same as to esteem and maintain the unity of the Catholic Church. He writes to this same Cornelius on the subject of some African schismatics: They have the audacity to set sail and to carry letters from schismatic and profane people to the throne of Peter and to the chief church, the wellspring of priestly unity, and to ignore the fact that these were the Romans whose faith was extolled in the preaching of the apostles, men to whom faithlessness could have no access. Then he urges Pope Stephen to excommunicate Marcion of Arles, who had gone over to Novatian, and to appoint another bishop in his stead. Let letters be dispatched by you to the province and to the people residing at Arles, for the purpose of excommunicating Marcion and of appointing another to take his place. Let us know clearly who has been appointed at Arles in the place of Marcion, so that we may know to whom to direct our brethren and to whom we should address our correspondence. See, there's something really to be said for having a point of contact and how important that is. Going back to what we said earlier, there were two sources they could turn to, either the apostles in general, well, we still have that in terms of all the traditional communities, or they talked about Rome, and well, now what we must depend on at this point in time is a fortunately very tremendous and well in-depth documentation of what Rome has taught down through the ages. Those are the two sources to which people may apply. So even that is still true. It's just you can't go to the city of Rome, and you'd have to be very lucky to find a traditional Catholic, even though I'm sure there is some there, because it would be very hard to identify that there, where there's no particular organized body that seems to be present in that area of Catholics. So continuing here, Pope St. Stephen forbade Firmilian and other bishops of Asia Minor, under threat of excommunication, to repeat a baptism which had been administered by a heretic. He issued the same decree against St. Cyprian and very many bishops of Africa, reminding them of the rank of his episcopate, and insisting that he was the successor of Peter, upon whom the foundations of the church were placed. In fact, when St. Cyprian and his partisans refused to obey, he refused to have anything more to do with them. Wow. Dionysius, bishop of Alexandria, while engaged in controversy with Sabellius, made some rather careless remarks, and was accused of heresy before Pope Dionysius. He lost no time in sending a letter to the Bishop of Rome, in which he exonerated himself and insisted that the charge was trumped up and false. D. In the 4th century, when Eusebians had forced St. Athanasius, Bishop of Alexandria, from his see, both Athanasius and Eusebius appealed to Pope Julius I. Julius insisted that Athanasius be restored to his see, and at the same time upbraided the Eusebian bishops for having, without his authority, dared to depose bishops, indeed the Bishop of Alexandria himself. Do you not know that the usual procedure is that letters be first sent to us, and that a just decision be passed from here? If, then, any such suspicion fell upon the bishop there, notice of it would have been sent to the bishop of this place. According to Socrates, I'm not sure who this Socrates is, not the follower, the teacher of Plato, I'm sure. At the same time, Paul, the bishop of Constantinople, Asclepius of Gaza, Marcellus of Ancrea, and Lucius of Adrianople, all having been charged with various offenses and evicted from their churches, arrived in the imperial city. There each presented his case before Julius, bishop of the city of Rome, and he, in accordance with the Church of Rome's special prerogative, sent them back to the east, backed up by commendatory letters. He restored to each of them his see, and at the same time reprimanded those who had been so rash as to depose them, the aforementioned bishops. This just goes to show another real value of having a real pope, because sometimes you get one bishop out of whatever base motive of rivalry or misinformation or something, lack of due diligence, is willing to accuse another bishop of heresy or saying they should be nothing or should be deposed, as sometimes has happened. You see, a pope would be able to say, no, this is a bishop, he is here, I put him there, and you have to accept, his flock must accept him. Do not attempt to depose him. You see. So we see again here how incredibly vital it is for the church to have a pope. St. Jerome wrote to Pope Damasus, "As I follow no leader save Christ, so I communicate with none but your blessedness, that is, with the chair of Peter. For this I know is the rock on which the church was built. The church is built. This is the house where alone the paschal lamb can be rightly eaten. This is the ark of Noah, and he who is not in it will perish when the flood prevails. He who gathers not with you scatters. He that is not of Christ is of Antichrist. Elsewhere he wrote, when I was helping Damasus, bishop of the city of Rome, with the records of the church, and was replying to requests for advice from synods in the east and the west, obviously acting as the Pope's representative in that capacity. In 385, Pope Siricius wrote to Himerius, bishop of Tarragona, we do not refuse to give a suitable answer to your request for advice, since considering the office we hold, we have no right to dissemble. We are not free to keep silence. We bear the burdens of all who are heavily laden, or rather, St. Peter the Apostle bears them in our person. He who we trust protects us in all the affairs of his office and watches over all his successors. St. Augustine extols the Church of Rome, in which the ruling power of the Apostolic See has always flourished. I think that'll be enough for number 27.